Previously on EmeraldComet.
Have you ever heard of something called the Sword of Amicitia?
Where did you hear that name?
Well, it's kind of a long story.
Okay, start from the beginning.
Basically, this pony called Nightmare Shadow tried to screw with my head and make me think that I was some kind of sadist because I read dark fanfics. Thing is, though, it kinda worked. I was pretty much ready to stab myself through the chest. But then this sword showed me a vision of all the great things that there were about the stories that I reviewed. If it hadn't been for her, I'd be dead right now. Is there a way that I can talk to Amicitia?
Not sure if I can help you there. I could put you in touch with Aurora Mage, though. If any pony knows anything about powerful magic, it's her.
Awesome.
So, a fragment of an alicorn. That actually makes things easier. However, this meeting with the Aura Mage is dangerous. I cannot allow the sword to fall into the hands of someone that powerful, and I especially cannot risk it falling into the hands of her other half. If that creature ever found a way to leave the confines of her domain, it would be disastrous. It seems there's no other option. I will have to speak to the Green One personally.
So, you review fanfiction too.
Yep,
You reviewed her own pony as well?
that I did.
You did a pretty good job.
Thanks. You too. So, how long have you been doing this?
For as long as I've been in the Rift.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, what are we gonna do? He's so much more composed than we are!
Just calm down, okay? We just need to keep pressing him for questions about his channel and how he reviews fanfics.
But you've seen his stuff! He's wittier than we are! What if the others think he's a better fic reviewer? What if they kick us out of the Rift? What if everybody leaves us by the wayside and they start watching him instead? It'll be school all over again!
Get a grip on yourself, damn it! If we break now, we'll definitely lose. We just need to focus. Concentrate on the enemy and don't give him an inch. Look at him, staring at us with those big old compounds. He's probably plotting our downfall right now.
Oh, this guy is good. Cool, calm, collected. I gotta be ready for anything. I wonder what it feels like. Who knows what tricks it? Wait, what? His mane. It's beautiful. Seriously, we are face to face with our biggest competitor in the middle of this void thing, and the only thing you can think of is his hair. I wonder what it smells like. You're a disgrace. Besides, that's totally a perm. What? No, it's not. Trust me, I know grooming, and there's no way that's natural. Oh, look at me. I know everything about everything. So you must know everything about the fashion. Let me have this, you know, that just because I like my hair, I'm not surgeon does not mean good. I want to put honey in your mane.
You want to just review a story and never speak of this again? Definitely.
Great! Awesome! That wasn't me, by the way.
What, did the voices in your head tell you to say it?
Don't yours tell you to do things?
Today's fic is called A Minor Variation, and it's written by Not Murphy. A minor variation is about... well, just that, really. It takes place in an alternate timeline where the Sonic Rain Boom didn't happen. Only, instead of all the post-apocalyptic stuff that we saw in the Season 5 finale, the main six all end up with different destinies.
For example, Rainbow Dash is now Tony Stark without the alcoholism or Iron Man suit, Pinkie Pie is a nun, Twilight is... Twilight, except now she's really into trees, and so on and so forth.
The story itself shows the changes the absence of the Rain Boom has on the lives of the main six, and it catalogues most of the events of Season 1 up until the return of Harmony and the battle with Discord. Whether or not that was a good idea, I'll get into later.
So, is this gonna be a bad cop, good cop sort of thing? Because I call dibs on bad cop.
Get in line, pal. My show, I get to rage first. I really didn't like this fic all that much. There's already a bunch of other fics, and hell, an episode of the show that have already done this concept. So if you really want your story to be good, you better come up with something unique. And sadly, this fic, to me at least, came across as very by the numbers and honestly very drab in parts.
Really? I was just gonna call it boring and confusing. A Minor Variation falls into that trap of having great ideas with subpar execution. The alternate backstories to the main 6 are interesting, but it doesn't seem like the author knew what to do with them. As a result, the story feels aimless, and the structure does not help at all.
Something tells me we could probably both lambast this thing until the cows come home. But I think we may as well give credit where credit is due and talk about the stuff that's actually good first.
In the first part of the story, we see the butterfly effect in motion. Instead of performing the sonic rainboom, Dash gets horribly injured and decides that a life of recklessness is just not worth it. One thing leads to another, and now she's one of Equestria's most brilliant inventors. Seeing this journey unfold is really cool, and this subplot alone could have made for a great story. In fact, all of the characters' new backstories are really well thought out, and it is clear to me that this is where the real passion was.
I totally agree. I like seeing what writers come up with for scenarios such as this, and some of these ideas are actually pretty cool. Applejack doesn't lose her love for family, but she's now a musician. Fluttershy goes from the introverted shut-in to the brave captain of the weather team, and Rarity becomes Weiss from Ruby.
Who?
Ooh, I get to flaunt my geekiness for a second.
It wasn't obvious?
Hardy har har, Mr. Swiss Cheese. Well, basically, it's a show about blah 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 blah.
Wow.
Blah, 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 blah,
This
blah,
guy
blah, blah,
is
blah,
a
blah,
weeb.
blah, blah,
Yes,
blah, blah, blah,
a
blah,
weeb
blah,
with
blah,
luscious
blah,
mane.
blah,
Oh,
blah,
would you
blah,
shut
blah,
up
blah,
about
blah,
the mane
blah,
already?
blah, blah. And that's my foolproof 40-step plan for kidnapping British Ninja, trapping him in a soundproof room, and getting him to review the show with me.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Finally, someone else who understands. Anyway, the characters' different paths in life mean that they all end up getting a very different element of harmony, and the stories for how they get their new elements using their new talents, except for Fluttershy, but we'll get into that later, come across as very well thought out and nicely executed. Again, for the most part.
There's a handful of really good moments in this story, and the best one has to be with Applejack. After the death of her parents, AJ went on the road to become a traveling musician, only to come home for the summer sun celebration. She still feels guilty about leaving, and it's only made worse when Apple Bloom asks her to stay for good. This sets up a very emotional story arc for Applejack, where she has to decide between her family and her own ambitions.
I'll agree with you on the handful of good moments part, but the best one for me has to be later in the story where the great and powerful Trixie storms back into town. And it's not just her. She's accompanied by Gilda, Iron Will, Flim and Flam, and even a changeling. What makes it good is that the writer has a bit of fun with this concept. You've got all these characters with big egos and big personalities, all coming together for a showdown against the main cast, and it plays out about as well as you'd think.
So now that we're all the way through the rest of the fic, can we talk about Discord now?
If you want to, I try and not miss an opportunity to praise the glorious Lord of Chaos.
Alright, I'll keep it simple. The author nailed Discord. He's clever, sadistic, and more importantly, he provides our cast with actual challenges to overcome.
One of the best things he does is that even though the main 6 figure out they need to go back to Twilight's house for the elements, Discord greets them there and is like, fuck it, we're gonna play a game. And he carries on like he did in the episode. For a minute I was worried that the battle wasn't even going to be a challenge, but it was a nice subversion that was more than welcome. So all in all, there are some good things to be found here.
Yes, credit where credit is due. But is it time to rain on the parade yet?
All in due time. Starting now. And as my honored guest, you can go first.
Okay, so the way this story is structured kind of blows my mind. After all the Nightmare Moon stuff, we jump right into the slice of life. But instead of splitting up the narrative into nice little episodes, it's split into seasons. Basically a bundle of moments that I guess happen around the same time. While interesting on paper, this approach does not enhance the story at all. Every chapter has at least 3 to 5 different scenes going on at the same time, and all of them are usually unrelated. One moment we cut to Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo in a workshop, to Rarity interviewing a changeling, to Pinkie Pie fighting for zebra rights. I mean, this wouldn't be too bad if the author didn't transition between them every 5 seconds. It felt like I was playing a game of musical chairs. All I want to do is sit down and listen to the music, but I have to get myself ready to move to another spot on a moment's notice.
That's really one of the core problems with the fic. It can't stand still and just let a moment be a moment. I know I've brought up the Game of Thrones example before, but there's a reason for it. Those books have nicely structured chapters, where one character is the focus and moments happen around them, no one else. That makes the moments feel more powerful because you're allowed to sit with the moment and then reflect on it. Here, you can't reflect on them because as soon as you try, you're catapulted into the next thing that you have to think about, and as a result, nothing feels impactful. If I could sum up the story in a few words, it would be stuff happens and then it stops. And don't try and ask me what that stuff was, because honestly, I haven't a bloody clue.
It should also be noted that the story needs more exposition, which I never thought I would ever say. Almost every scene starts with dialogue, so you have to stop reading for a few seconds to figure out who's actually talking. Add that with the amount of scene transitions, and I ended up reading half of this story at least twice because I was always confused on who and where the scene was focused on. And I gotta mention the gala chapter. I didn't even know it was the gala chapter until the very end. Unlike the show, the gala just sort of happens without any build-up or anticipation, and the author doesn't provide details like location, time, or date. For all I knew, it was just a very busy and chaotic day in Ponyville.
One of the worst things, if not the worst thing you can do as a storyteller is make your story boring. And this story commits that crime and so many more. It outstays its welcome well after the Nightmare Moon arc. I may have liked the Trixie chapter, but that doesn't mean that everything that came with it was relevant. The slice of life chapters contribute nothing to the overall plot. They come, they go, and you immediately forget about them once they're gone. Nothing in them, aside from maybe one, has anything worthwhile to offer. And what's worse is that there are so many hanging threads in these segments that go nowhere. Rarity interviews a changeling to understand its behavior. Goes nowhere. Pinky has a debate with Andrew Ryan Pony. Goes nowhere. Rainbow Dash is contracted to make new suits for the Wonderbolts.
And I got this one.
In my experience, I should probably brace myself with the incoming rant. Go ahead.
You know what other problem this story has? There's barely any conflict. And no side story exemplifies this problem more than the Rainbow Dash Wonderbolt arc. One day, Dash is contracted to make flight suits for the Wonderbolts. So, she interviews Fluttershy's team to get ideas. Then, she makes the suits. Then, she shows them off, and everyone loves them. That's it. Oh, wait, I forgot. She also adopts Tank while doing this? I'm guessing this arc was based on Suited for Success, where Rarity makes dresses for her friends. You remember how Rarity had to deal with criticism and how she wanted to make her friends happy even if it meant compromising her vision? And how all of this falls apart because her friends have the fashion sense of an actual horse? Well, you'll notice that the Season 1 episode had actual conflict. Characters had disagreements, which led to problems, which led to suspense, and eventually, character development. Most of the stories in A Minor Variation have none of these, and it makes the story feel aimless and static.
Drama at its core comes from two characters in a room disagreeing with each other. There's nothing worse than two characters in the same setting saying, "Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I think you're right too." There has to be some kind of conflict between someone to make a story interesting, and that is nowhere to be found here. The fic is already over 30 chapters long, and when you add on that 60% of it has little to no conflict, or character motivation, or actual goals for the characters to work towards, it feels like 60. And we haven't even gotten started on the fic's attempts at humor yet.
Is that rage I smell? I'll let you handle this one.
Thank you, I need the public space to vent. Now, this could all just be an entirely subjective point, but I don't think I cracked a smile once during this thing. It comes down to the fact that a lot of the jokes in the story are, well, stupid. Like, for example, Applejack defeats her Nightmare Moon challenge through a rendition of Fight for Your Right to Party. Now, am I the only one who thinks that's dumb? Or Fluttershy just brushing off the fact that her challenge wasn't worth writing about? I don't find that funny. That to me just screams, I couldn't be bothered to think of anything, so here's a dumb joke. There are so many little moments in the fic where it was clear the writer was trying to make a joke, and all of them fall onto a bed of nails. It ends up feeling like the story thinks it's much clever and wittier than it actually is. I mean, hell, after reading this thing, I would rather...
Rather what?
I can't say it.
Can't say what?
I just can't.
Emerald.
Please don't make me say it.
Emerald.
I would rather read But the Kitchen Sink over this thing. Say what you will about that story, and trust me, I will. But at least it had a very clear sense of tone. It was a dumb comedy, but it was aware that it was a dumb comedy. When a minor variation makes a dumb joke, it feels forced and unnatural.
You know, I get the feeling that we could talk about this fic for hours. I mean, if this were my channel, I would probably be ranting for another 20 minutes, but I have to make compromises for those of weaker wills. To sum it up, A Minor Variation feels like a passion project that was made on the spot. The backstories are cool, but the structure is confusing, the stories are boring, and the characters lack any sense of drive. Ultimately, it was a chore to get through.
I could not agree with you more. I felt myself age as I was reading this thing. Some stories warrant being long, but this one certainly doesn't. It outstays its welcome, it has flat, uninteresting storylines, and lacks any kind of character progression or development. Your time is precious, folks. Pass on this one. You know, a very small part of me feels bad. I find another fic reviewer, and the first thing we talk about makes us both freak out.
Yeah, well, I think the audience will get a kick out of it.
I suppose. Wouldn't be the first time they've enjoyed watching me suffer.
Well, besides that, I had fun. Ever since we agreed to do this story, I've been wanting to get this story off my chest. So tell you what, if I ever need to rage about a story ever again, I'll give you a call.
Duly noted. Regardless, folks, thank you all very much for watching. I'm EmeraldComet.
And I'm Changeling number 32.
And... are you ever going to address the honey in my mane thing?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Do you want me to?
I'll see you all next time.
We need to talk.
Oh, for the love of the drowned god, I only just got back! Okay. Hello, Oculus. Nice to see you finally showed up.
You knew?
Dude, you've been popping up at the end of a load of my reviews and talking about how you need to speak to the Green One personally. Do you seriously think I don't watch my own show? Why else do you think I chose to go away for college for an entire year?
I should have expected that.
Okay, buddy. So now that you're done playing Creeper in the Shadows, would you care to explain what you're doing here before I bring the whole TF2 squad down on your ass?
If you really have been watching me, then you know exactly why I'm here. You cannot risk giving the sword to that demon.
And I suppose you're the one who wants it?
Yes. And I'm willing to offer you a deal. If I agree to help you release the spirit inside the sword so you can say hi to her, as you put it, you give me the sword itself.
Don't know how to break this to you, mate, but you're kind of lacking in the horn department. How are you going to get it out? Oh, I'm sorry. Have I offended you? Okay, you can stop that now. Okay, now it's just creepy. What the actual fuck?
Do not presume you're the only one who can use magic, unicorn.
demonstration of my abilities.
Alright. Point proven. But what do you want with a sword? I mean, I think claws could do a better job of ripping someone's face off.
It's a sword made entirely out of gemstones, and I'm a diamond dog. You may have 3 guesses.
Wait, you're a diamond dog? You look way more wolfish to me.
Do not mistake my breed for the mutts you see scavenging around your towns. We're a far prouder race.
So then what was with that whole thing about power you said before if the only thing you wanted was the sword?
We still don't know exactly what that sword is yet. We do know it is powerful, yes, and that could make it useful, but it can just as likely make it blow up in some creature's face. Until we know more, better it be his face than ours.
Yes, it is true. I was initially interested in the sword for its power, but once I learned that powers tied to a sentient creature became effectively useless to me. I cannot control a weapon with a mind of its own, so I'm simply gathering whatever benefit I can.
Why do you care? I mean, a sword is a pretty small benefit compared to an alicorn spirit.
Because I don't like to waste any potential resource. Because if I don't make this deal with you and get those small benefits, you're almost certainly going to speak to the Aura Mage and bring disaster upon all of us. Unless, of course, I killed you right now, but considering what happened to the last entity who tried that, I doubt I'd be successful. I know when I'm outmatched. So, do we have a deal?
Yeah, no. I'm still not convinced. Hell, the last time I had an encounter with a Dr. Claw ripoff, it didn't exactly end well for me.
Doctor who?
Look, I'd love to sit here and talk about TV shows with you, but I think we have more important things to discuss.
Ah, yes, a pop culture reference. I haven't heard one of those since the Second Age. But as I was saying, if I tried to do something to you, your sword would cut me down in seconds. I'm not stupid enough to risk that. This way, you get what you want, I avoid getting killed, and you don't risk giving an already powerful psychopath even more power. Does that sound fair?
Alright. As you're so keen to have it, you can.
Very well then. We shall meet again in a week's time.
Ted? Give me the phone. Hello, Rift Security? Yes, I'd like to hire a bodyguard for a job in a week's time. You only have one? No, that's okay. What do you mean he's a bit explodey? Oh, God, no.